Good evening and welcome to it. This is the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Sibs Matiela, here to answer all of your property-related questions and queries. We are reporting live. I sound like a news person when there's like a protest or a fire or something, but genuinely, we are live from the property show happening at the Sandton Convention Centre in the heart of Johannesburg. And we are bringing you, in case you've missed it, in case you couldn't attend, in case you couldn't join us virtually, we are bringing you everything that you missed. All of the exhibitors, all of the speakers, anyone and everyone who has something of value to add to you along your property journey. We have brought them onto the podcast because privateproperty.co.za loves to connect you to the heart of property. Joining me right now, Franki Robinson, who is the marketing manager at Better Bond. Hi, Franki.
Hi, Sibs. Great to be here.
You have an amazing smile, first of all. It's completely unrelated, but your smile is magical.
Thank you very much.
Tell me more about Better Bond and your business model. I mean, it sounds self-explanatory. Better Bond, you must have the Better Bond.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why our slogan is "Our name says it all." It is pretty self-explanatory. But just to unpack it a little bit more for the viewers, we have clients who apply to us for a home loan. And instead of them going to multiple banks to apply themselves, they would have to do a separate application with each of the banks themselves. We take on that work for them. So they do one application with us, which we help them with. So we facilitate that process. And we then take it to the major banks and apply on their behalf. And we then can negotiate with the banks as well. So obviously the fact that we're applying for the client, the banks automatically know that they're competing against the other banks for the deal, so they then put their best foot forward in terms of the interest rate that they offer. And we can then, even if the client still wants us to negotiate further, we can then go back and negotiate on the deposit required or the loan to value or whatever it is. We can chat to the financial institutions for the client. And facilitate that entire process for the client.
Look, I think especially for a first-time home buyer, all of this can be incredibly intimidating. What does Better Bond do to make the process sort of structured and simple and understandable and accessible?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very daunting process. And I think a lot of people, even if you're buying a second or third home, there's a big gap between when you buy your first home generally and when you buy the second one. So you forget about that process and things change along the way. So we've got expert consultants who are very knowledgeable. They have many, many years in the industry, and they also know what the bank criteria is. So they know exactly what the banks look out for, what the clients need to do in order to qualify. So we look at their credit scores. We work with the clients to make sure that when the application goes in, it has the strongest possible chance of being approved by the bank. We also do pre-approvals with our clients. So it's one of the big things we are pushing, especially at the moment with the interest rates starting to increase and the economic pressure that everybody is under. We really, really encourage our clients out there to check their affordability and go with a home loan or look for a home that's slightly below their affordability as well. We don't want them to extend themselves too far and then the interest rate goes up and then they can't afford their home loan anymore. And I mean, the banks are quite good at not allowing clients to overextend, but I think it's something that we, facilitating the process, we need to be responsible with our clients as well. And we really do encourage that they do that as the first step before they even start looking for a property.
Look, speaking of the pre-approval process, and I'm beginning to understand more and more how it's so important. A lot of people, I was actually speaking to Rob van Vuren yesterday, and he was telling me about how he pretended he had a 20% deposit for the home that he was going to buy. And then, he got the approval and now he had to go around asking all of his friends for money. Do you find that sometimes people try and sort of cook the books in their favor and then end up in really shaky situations?
Look, they do. I mean, I think people, aren't necessarily honest with themselves when they try, we use online calculators and they put in their expenses and their income and that kind of thing that, they forget a thing here or there. But that's really our job to make sure that when the application goes into the bank, that it is as accurate as possible, because the banks pick up that stuff. They'll look at your bank statements, they look at your pay slips, they look at everything. And to assess the risk that they're taking on to facilitate that loan. So, as much as clients do try to take a chance, I think initially, when the application goes in, certainly if it goes in through Better Bond, it is as accurate as it can be because we want that client to have the best possible chance of getting a loan. So absolutely, people take chances, but they're not going to get it past when they go through Better Bond.
So at Better Bond, I mean, we're finding a lot of people, specifically after COVID, are now self-employed, or they are freelancing, or they're working from all across the world. Yeah, like, oh, let me go spend a year in Bali, then I'll save up from Dubai, and then I'll come back and I'll so obviously their income structure isn't necessarily the same as the traditional income structure and pay slips that you would have been looking at before. How does Better Bond sort of make it easier for those people in that situation?
Absolutely. I mean, it's traditionally been quite hard for self-employed individuals to get a home loan. It is more complicated. The banks have far more rigorous requirements. So we have experts that specifically deal with self-employed applications. So they know all the bank criteria that they need to look out for. They will work with the clients to get all the right documents in place, make sure that they're the right time frame, etc. And they then fill out that application with the client and make sure again that it's submitted in the best possible state that it can be, so that the client has the highest possible chance. But there are still plenty of self-employed individuals getting home loans, so it's very, very possible. I think a lot of self-employed individuals kind of are very nervous and they don't want to apply because they know how difficult it is. But by using Better Bond, it really does make it easier, because you've got somebody that knows exactly what you need to supply. They can give you those guidelines and they can work with you to facilitate the process and make it that much easier.
And they're experts because they've done this before. They've dealt with it before. You are not the first self-employed person to walk through the doors at Better Bond or go online and say, Better Bond, please help me.
Absolutely, 100%.
Franki, a lot of people would sometimes think, obviously, the bank that I've been banking with for the past 55 million trillion years is the bank that's going to give me the best rates, the best home loan, the best whatever. And with that in mind, don't consider doing a more comparative study. Do you find that a lot?
Absolutely. So clients often come to us once they've applied to their bank first, and they just want to see what alternatives are out there. We really encourage our clients to come to us first before they go to their own bank. For the same reason that I mentioned earlier, the banks know that you are then competing for the deal if it comes through Better Bond. If you go to them as an individual, they know that you have banked with them, you have a sense of trust with them, etc. And they might just give you an interest rate based on your scorecard, and it's a relatively kind of functional process. If you go through Better Bond, we are applying to multiple banks for you. And they all know that they literally are competing for that deal, so they will give you a better interest rate, and that's what we find a lot of the time. A lot of our clients still decide to go with their own banks, but that's purely because we've managed to negotiate them the best rate that they are happy with, and then they stick. Obviously they don't want to be changing banks, and they're quite happy to have everything under one roof. So that's great. Then they stick with their own bank. But we really do encourage people to just see what's out there, see what all the banks are going to offer, and then you can make an informed decision.
I love that. It's like pick Better Bond as your fighter, because when you go in as Better Bond, they know that they're competing amongst each other and they've got to come correct. But if I just walk in as little old Sibs, it's like, oh, okay, just give her whatever and she'll sign on the dotted line.
Absolutely. And it's not to say that the banks necessarily do that. I'm sure a lot of them do give their clients, a rate that they would necessarily normally. But you'll never know that if you don't try using a bond origination service. It's just one of those things you need to shop around for your home loan. It's one of the biggest investments you'll ever make in your life for a lot of people. And for things like an air ticket where we spend 2,000 Rand or 3,000 Rand, we go online and we shop around for it. Why can't you do the same with your home loan? I think it's the logical thing to do.
Tell me what the why is of Better Bond.
So we're all about getting people into homes. And I know it sounds fairly obvious, but I think there's a lot of South Africans that have never been in a position to own their own home and have that security. And I think the biggest thing for us is to really make sure that every South African has the opportunity to get a home of their own. It's something that a lot of people take for granted, and it's something that a lot of people aspire to, and we just want to be there to help and facilitate the process. And the fact that our service is completely free to the client is something that we really want to get out there as well. There's really no catch to using a bond originator. Before I even started working at Better Bond, I didn't know about bond origination. I didn't know that the service was free, and I thought, no, there must be a catch when I started working. And then I obviously got to know the business, and I realized that it really is a free service for consumers. And it's something that should be taken advantage of, and that you need to use in your life if you're purchasing a home. And I think the one thing that needs to be clear as well is that we make money by the bank that grants the deal pays us a once-off fee that doesn't influence the interest rate for the consumer at all, or their deal. There's no hidden costs, because I think a lot of people go, what's the catch?
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. You're like, oh, we've got this great service. It's absolutely free. We do all of this work for you. Pick us, we're your fighter. What do you get at the end of it?
We get a fee from the bank that grants your deal. So, I mean, we essentially have taken over that admin portion for the bank. So they have lower overheads. We are bringing the client to them. So we're facilitating the entire process for them. So we make it easier for them. And then they have a client for 20 years or, however long the loan is, the home loan, but typically they're 20 years. So, so for them, it's a worthwhile thing. So they pay us a once-off fee when the deal registers, and that's it. That's how we make our money.
Franki, I think a lack of housing generally across South Africa is a very massive problem that people face. How would you say Better Bond sort of makes that more accessible to people who've counted themselves out, who think, this is not within my realm of possibility. I'm out here trying to pay the rent, the school fees, buy groceries. The price of cooking oil has skyrocketed. Not sure why. It's probably about Russia. And they think, this is something I can't do right now.
Yeah. So, Sibs, I think the main thing we're trying to do is educate people. So I think a lot of the themes that came out in the show this year when I was listening to the speakers is around research. So we're encouraging our clients to learn as much as they can, to absorb as much as they can before they buy a property. So that's the one thing, to make sure they understand the process, what they're getting themselves into, the extent of responsibility that it is purchasing a home, the extent of the costs that are involved in it. All of those kind of things need to be factored in. So that's the one part of it. And then also just understanding that you are going to get into this long-term commitment. So it's something that you really need to be responsible for, and taking that responsibility. So the affordability thing then becomes absolutely critical, because as soon as you are in a position where you're retrenched, or your salary might be cut, or whatever the case is, like what happened in COVID, you need to understand that your affordability has to be key. So the big thing now is around the interest rate, specifically it's starting to increase at 7%. It was the lowest it's been in 50 years. It's now sitting at 9%. It's still at pre-COVID levels. So in January 2020, it was sitting at 10%. So it's still 1% lower, but that is going to increase. So it's educating clients to say, around your affordability, know what you can afford now, but know what you can afford in 3 years' time, when the interest rate might be at 11%, for argument's sake. So it's kind of those two things, that for clients to absolutely research and learn as much as they can. We've got a lot of stuff on our website where clients or consumers can come on and they can find out more about the process. They can learn more. We've got guides. Our consultants obviously speak to a lot of clients and walk them through the process. And then the second part of it is the affordability. It's absolutely critical. So those are the two kind of key things at the moment that we're really trying to drive home with consumers.
What sets Better Bond apart?
So I'd probably say our people and our service. I think we really have a passionate team of consultants that really, really, really love getting people into homes. So we get compliments literally on a daily basis. I have a flood of compliments coming into my inbox from clients.
Not just about your dazzling smile.
Not just about my dazzling smile, fortunately, but clients that absolutely have had their lives changed by getting a home. So I think, again, a lot of people take it for granted that they've got a home loan and they've got a home and they're buying their second home, or they've got an investment property or whatever it is. But there are lots of people that have never had a title deed. They've never had the thing to call their own. And I think that's critical. We've really, really, really got people in the business that live, sleep, eat, breathe home loans. And that it makes them really happy on a daily basis to get somebody into a home that has never had that opportunity before. And our consultants fight for those deals, let me tell you. They fight with the banks. They make sure that they get the absolute best deal that they can for the clients. And I think that's what sets us apart. I mean, obviously, we've got online processes. You can go on and submit your home loan and do your pre-approvals online. But there's always a person behind that that's vetting your documents that you're uploading, that's speaking to the bank. There's always that human intervention at some point because it is such a complex process. So yes, I would say our people are what set us apart.
There's nothing like it. Just relationship building and knowing that there's someone there to hold your hand and walk you through the entire process.
For sure.
Someone who really just cares about you and about your
Absolutely.
needs and the things that you need to learn and the things that you need to do and just setting you up for success.
Absolutely.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I'm sold.
100%.
When I can afford a house, I will come to
Please.
Better Bond.
Please do. We will be happy to help you.
Listen, Frankie, a little birdie whispered in my ear about some shoes that you guys have bought recently. Are you allowed to talk about it?
Not yet.
No.
We have an official press release that came out on Friday.
Yes.
So that you can have a squiz at. But more than that, I can't really share at this stage.
Okay, you'll find it on the internet. And when Frankie comes back, Franki Robinson from Better Bonds coming to you live from the property show at the Sandton Convention Centre in the heart of Johannesburg. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We will be back tomorrow.